Copper Sun by Sharon Draper, Chapter 42, Copper Sun. Inez showed Amari the boundaries of the little settlement, a river, a marsh, the hills they had traversed earlier. The entire community would fit in one tiny corner of Mr. Derby's plantation, Amari observed, as she walked past the small gardens of the people who lived there. Several people waved. To Amari's amazement, Inez pointed out a blended family whose Spanish mother and Negro father sat in front of a fire with their two children, as well as a family of Seminoles who lived in the house next to them. Everybody here come from someplace else? Ain't nobody been here very long. Don't nobody know how long they're gonna stay. It just be good for right now. Inez explained. Amari understood. She thought of Cato, who had dreams of streets of gold. How this place come to me? Amari asked. Folks been living here for a long time, but Fort Mose got made official by the king earlier this year of our Lord, 1738, Inez explained. Fort Mose is supposed to be protection for the town of St. Augustine, Inez said. The Spanish king ain't no fool. How this little spot of land supposed to do that? Amari asked. When the soldiers come, it be from the way you come, from north of here. St. Augustine be real important to the Spanish, so we out here as the outpost. I expect that's what Fort Mose is all about, Inez replied. As they reached the thatched cottage that would be her new home, Amari thrilled at the sight. Surrounded by a small garden where vegetables were already growing, the dwelling was much larger than the slave shack she had shared with Polly back at the Derbyshire farms. With a window, a back door, as well as a front door, and a hearth for cooking, there would be plenty of room for the three of them. It was perfect. But then Amari had a terrible thought. You got fighting here? Amari asked with alarm. Not much yet, but when there do be fighting, are men going to be the first to die? Inez told her. Seemed to me it'd be better to die for freedom than live as a slave, Amari said with feeling. It was hard for her to absorb the fact that she was truly free. Yes, child, it'd be hard for a woman to be a slave, Inez replied slowly. I know, I lived it too. Mass of me messing with you in the night. She kept her eyes away from Amari. Amari bowed her head and looked at the ground. For me, it'd be the sun. I was his birthday present. Inez touched Amari's shoulder with understanding. How long you been on the road, child? She asked. I think about 2 months. It'd be hard to say. You been feeling poorly on your journey? Inez asked. We always hungry, Amari told her. Never enough to eat. Never enough rest, but yes, I be feeling sickly. You ain't sick. I ain't, Amari asked hopefully, but I feels bad most every day. Inez paused a moment. Then she said gently, you be with child, Amari. Suddenly, it all made sense. The nausea, the dizziness, the feeling of being heavy and lethargic. Oh no, Amari cried. She slumped to the floor of the cottage. Amari thought with revulsion of the hated night she had been called to Clay's room. The smell of the lantern by his bed, the stench of his sweat. She thought she would vomit. This cannot be. Not now. Not when freedom be in my hand, she whispered. Inez squatted beside her. You all right, child? She implored. No, ma'am. I cannot do this. This child make me think about being slaves, Amari wept. Babies don't know nothing about no slavery. They just knows about love, Inez said gently. I hate it, Amari cried, clutching at her stomach. She could not erase the image of Clay's hateful face from her mind. No, child, you don't hate it. Already you be loving it. In your mind, you're already protecting it from the bad memories you carry. I sees the struggle on your face. No, Amari cried out. Yes, Inez whispered in her ear. Your heart be saying yes. Amari did not want to admit that Inez might be right. I'd be so scared, she whispered to Inez. I know, child, but you ain't the first. You got women here who will help you, women who done gone through the same thing. Like me, Inez offered. You? Amari asked through her tears. I had a child, my master's child for sure. She'd be as pretty as the dawn, blonde hair, blue eyes, and skin the color of wheat tea. What happened to her? Amari asked. Master's wife hated that child, had Master sell her when she was not much older than your tidbit, sold her down to New Orleans. Master sold his own flesh and blood. Inez gave Amari a hug. I never seen her ever again. Amari hugged Inez and swallowed her own tears. I'd be so sorry for your baby. You must be sure You must for sure knows how Tidbit's mom must be feeling. I hope your child be safe and happy like Tidbit is. Lord only knows, Inez said as she looked to the sky. I feel so stupid, Amari told her. I should have figured it out. You ain't had no mama to see the signs and take care of you, Inez told her softly. And it probably the best that you didn't figure it out while you was on your journey. You had to focus on surviving. What I do now? Amari asked her in alarm. Relax, child. Let nature take its course. You ain't got but a few months to wait. My child be born free? Amari asked. Oh, yes, Amari. Your child be free. Free. The word felt like cool water on Amari's lips. Inez looked around the cottage. I'm going to make y'all a broom for your new place. I'll get Tidbit to help me gather the branches. You stay here and think about your future, child. It'd be a good day to spend some silent time. I'll be back directly. She turned and left, heading back to her own place. Amari placed her hands on her belly, full of wonder and confusion. I cannot do this, she thought frantically. She felt like running away from herself, from this new reality. But I'm so tired. I just can't run anymore. Not from the past, not from my future. She closed her eyes and leaned against the wall of the cottage. Distorted images of Clay Derby's face floated into her mind. The most disconcerting image was the look of genuine affection he occasionally showed her. Amari beat her hands on the dirt floor, tears of anger welling in her eyes. What shall I do? Amari thought helplessly. She willed herself to imagine her mother, who would know what to say and how to comfort her. All of her mother's dreams of growing old and watching her grandchildren play had been brutally dashed into the dust. This child carries the spirit of my mother, Amari realized suddenly, as well as the essence of her father, little Kwasi, the murdered people of her village, and the spirits of all her ancestors. Amari opened her eyes and glanced out of the small door of the hut to the bright sky above. It was getting close to sunset. She lovingly visualized Afi, who had been the friend and mother she needed during that horrible journey to this land. Afi, who had told her that her destiny lay somewhere beyond those horrors. Amari had understood none of it at the time, but now perhaps it was beginning to make just a little sense. Wiping away a tear, she thought painfully of Teeny. Long as you remember, child, nothing ain't really ever gone, she'd said many times. Amari vowed never to forget. She wished with all her heart that Teeny could have come to this place with them. Teeny had also understood that Amari had been brought to this land for a reason, had sensed Amari's strength before Amari knew she had any, and had placed her own child in Amari's care for a chance at freedom. She inhaled sharply as she thought of Mrs. Derby, of the infant who had been given no chance to live, and of all the other women, both black and white, who continued to suffer as property of others. Amari also said a prayer of thanks for Polly, who was, incredibly, her friend. Amari refused to think of Clay any longer, for she knew his evil spirit could never touch the love she was already beginning to feel for the child within her. Inez had been right about that as well. If this child is a boy, Amari thought, I shall name him Freeman. He will stand tall and proud and be forever free. I shall teach him my native language and tell him of the beauties of my homeland. If it is a girl, I shall name her Afi, after the one who loved me and helped me find my destiny. I will tell this child of her ancestors and of her grandparents and tell her the stories my father told me. My child shall never be enslaved, Amari vowed fiercely. Amari glanced toward the west and watched the sun set. It glowed a bright metallic copper, the same sun that set each evening upon her homeland. She knew that she had found a home once more.